Hi, welcome to the 13th video of this video series on surviving IIM Ahmedabad. And this one's the first one which relates with placements. And it's about 7 key steps towards becoming a consultant. And essentially, one point to remember that I can only speak from this perspective because I've seen this process by going through the hoops in my first year as someone who's aspiring to become a consultant, and in my second year in my position as the coordinator of the consulting club. I wish I could have spoken about other areas also, but it's best if people who have actually gone through the process of that area do that. So this is not a recommendation for anyone to just take this up. Feel free to explore your choices. If this interests you, then this might be an interesting area to explore. As always, just go over these 4 slides if you haven't had a chance by pausing the video, so you have a better sense of where I'm coming from. But or you can just look at the first video. But I'll jump right into the meat of the matter, which is talking about the key steps. So this is what I saw on campus. It starts with CV making. And here I'm not going to discuss the particulars of any of these process steps rather. Uh, I think your recruitment team and your respective career clubs on campus will do a great job of that. What I'm sharing here are basically the pointers, which, like with the spirit of the whole series, I wish I knew when I had started 2 years ago. That's about it. And I will try to not BS here in any manner and try to give a more direct point of view. So, first, starting with CV making, I think a lot of times we spend just fixating over it. And I'm going to tell you upfront, there cannot be a state of utopian perfection when it comes to a CV. You really, at the end of the day, have to believe in yourself, because what I found was that every person, and the process here is that you make your CV and you go to different seniors on campus, or you reach out to people who are alums or people that you know from your life before B school, and you try to get their inputs on how the CV looks like. While the process is crucial, I think a lot of people end up overdoing it, because let's say after the 10th time you've gotten your CV reviewed, you would be if you've gotten it from the right people, you would be very close to perfection already. The 11th person might actually undo the effort of some of the first 10 people, because what everyone does is, because they are spending time and because you have reached out to them, they do try to add their own personality, their own flavor, their own advice to it, which is not always the most prudent. Or they might just have nothing to say, which is where the diminishing marginal utility comes in. So my very strong advice here would be to not seek this, to not fixate over this so much. Start with a very strong CV. Make sure that according to you, every point makes sense, is as succinct as possible, has context, action, result, to the extent possible. Every point essentially should capture this. What was the context in which this point, this activity occurred? What is exactly that you did? What was the result? Plus, having a quantitative spirit. Quantitative, yep. And what quantitativeness does is it makes it more believable and also highlights more impact. You could say that I saved significant amount of money for the company. That's a CV point. Now, significant can be interpreted in different manners. Someone might just stretch the facts here and say 1,000 rupees also significant, or it could mean 1 lakh rupees, 5 lakh rupees, 20 lakh rupees, 1 crore. So it's better when you're quantitative, the message comes out more clearly and the impact of your work is well highlighted. Also, it makes it more believable, because I mean, if it's non-quantitative, anyone can write a point like I made significant savings. But when you say I save, let's say 1 crore rupees for the company, then the person who's reviewing the CV also has more faith that that makes a lot of sense, because that means the person has put in some serious effort. So once you follow these two basic principles and your CV is well sorted out, I would say choose the people that you wanted to get reviewed from. Make a rational number because every CV review has cost. And once you exhaust the inputs from those people, then just stop. Do not seek utopia. That's the first point. Second is once you actually submit your CV for a firm, you have to await shortlist. Now this can be a fairly nail-biting time. And my three-pronged advice here would be: one is to do not believe soothsayers. Now, soothsayers would come in two categories. One is who would give false encouragement, "Arey tera ho jayega, tension mat le, tension mat le, tension mat le." Second would be in the category of people who would be fairly discouraging. "Arey, you don't really stand a chance." This can happen before the CV making process also, but largely let's say here. Do not believe either of them fully. My advice to you would be: do not seek opinion per se. I mean, your PGP2s, your second years are just more knowledgeable about the process by a timeline of 1 year. They're just interned in that firm. They're not insiders in any way. Some people that you trust to not bullshit, just reach out to them and get a realistic sense perhaps. There you also have to just not bluntly ask, "Are mera hoga nahi hoga." You can understand, you can gather more data from them. That who were the people who got, rather than asking them a yes or a no, gather data that who were the people who got shortlisted last year, and then try to map your profile to them. But always remember, all profiles are unique and profiles are seen in totality. And what happens is every year you will find that people are surprised. "Arey, uski shortlist, how did a particular individual get a shortlist? Or how did a particular person got missed out from a shortlist?" That's what happens when you overgeneralize on something. So believe in yourself. If your profile is good, then trust yourself. You don't have to seek validation over and over again. It can be very detrimental. Second is once the shortlist start coming in, you might not get some shortlist. That's very much possible. Just remember that you need one shot, at least in the way the interview processes are structured in most of the IMs. It's not possible to actually interview for like 5 consulting firms, and it's possible, it's very unlikely that you will actually end up interviewing with 5 firms. It's mostly going to be 1, 2, at max 3. So if you have gotten a shortlist for one of your top dream companies, let's say top 2 or 3 companies that you really aspire to be a part of, and you got a shortlist in one of them or 2 of them, that's completely fine. Even if you, let's say you had dreamed of 4 companies, even if you had all the 4 shortlists, it's unlikely you will get a chance to interview in all 4, and that's too much of a safety margin to have. So you remember, you just actually need one shot. It's a selection process, not a rejection process, which I'll come to in point number 8. So more often than not, you're likely to convert it. So believe in yourself. It doesn't matter if someone has 10 shortlists, frankly. I know sometimes it becomes a point of differentiation that people try to bring in. It doesn't matter. Third is, while I'm talking about people who have had, let's say, one shot, also there'll be your friends who don't have a single shot. Everyone comes on campus with certain aspirations, and some people will end up feeling a little disappointed when this process is happening. Just make sure in your happiness in getting your shots, you do not forget that some of your friends might not be sharing into that happiness at all. Just be there for them to the extent you can be. It's easy to forget in that. I know it sounds obvious, but it's easy to forget in that moment. That's why I'm trying to emphasize on that. Third is about the overall case groups and the overall preparation strategy. I'll detail that in the next video because I think it requires certain longer discussion. The next point is that, so typically what will happen is when you're doing prep with your case groups and you're preparing, this is a prep which is subsumed in some way, which is practicing with your senior batches, this is the PGP2s. My very strong advice to you would be to be choosy here. And I don't mean to demean anyone here, but the fact of the matter is a PPO does not mean one can simulate a good interview experience. From a practice interview, you need feedback on your case solving for sure, feedback on case, but you also need some encouragement, right? Some of the seniors might be able to give you good feedback, but they might also do this in a manner which is not very encouraging. And if that happens, depending upon an individual sensitivity, it might actually push them back. And it happened to me, it happened to a couple of my friends, that at least in our senior batch, we reached out to someone who frankly was not very good at encouraging people. In fact, he actively discouraged us. And it just shocked us for 2 3 days that, hey, are we this bad? Be choosy. And again, that person or any person that you meet in a cinema might actually be very good at case solving themselves. But you've all interacted with teachers, right, who are brilliant researchers but are not that effective when it comes to teaching in class. It's a very similar analogy I'm drawing here. So be choosy in terms of who you go to, and then also the absolute numbers that you reach out to. You don't need special yarn from your seniors. After a few days of preparation, your friends also will be pretty good at case solving and giving feedback. If you are not able to find a lot of time with your seniors, reach out to anyone else that you know who has gone through the process before. The next thing would be, once let's say you've gotten a shortlist or practicing going on, and these two essentially are interactions that you will have with companies, and that's at least true for the consulting firms, that you will be assigned a buddy who's someone who's, let's say, joined just this year or up to, let's say, 2 3 years ago. So someone, and typically at least in Ahmedabad, they try to set this up with people who are alums of our own campus. So it's a senior essentially, and someone who's not that senior. But somehow I've seen so many people actually have the sense of fear in those discussions. So my primary advice would be, don't be afraid. Be absolutely proactive in reaching out. Whenever you're assigned a buddy, message them, hey, can I have a chat with you? Whenever you're free, let me know. Be open. And the reason I'm saying that is because A, honesty helps to get more clarity. They are there to actually help you out with the process, to help you figure out, hey, I've got a gazillion shortlist. How do I look at a firm? How do I look at a career? What I feel is they can help you decide whether you're looking at a job or a career. If you are just cool with any consulting company, and this is my personal way of discriminating between these two terms, I think you're just looking for a job. But if you're looking for a firm where the culture aligns with you perfectly, where you feel that the company will lead to your personal growth and you can help the company grow, that's what seeking a career is. But I don't think sometimes because of fear we ask the questions which are dealing with career. So please do that. Be honest, get your doubts cleared, discuss your concerns, and set up a rapport with them. And I think that's one very important skill. As a consultant, you are supposed to set up rapport quickly with your team, which keeps changing with project to project, and with the client, because you have to get a lot of work done with the client. If you are someone who's very slow in setting up rapport with people, then this job, more than the company not wanting you, perhaps you might not be very good at this job yourself and you might not be happy. So if you are trying to impress someone, then I think one of the key things you have to reflect, or you have to really highlight, is your ability to set up rapport with them. That won't happen if you're afraid and not reaching out. Talk to them like a senior, talk to them like any professional, talk to them like a friend eventually, and set up that rapport. And this relationship can do wonder. I remember my buddies, some of them actually ended up being mentors much later, after the interview process was also done. So very crucial. And the dinners, like companies will host corporate dinners for individuals. Here, sometimes you will be assigned seats, sometimes you have the freedom to choose where you want to sit and who do you want to sit with. Here, one tactical advice might seem very small, but it's a good idea to sit with your friends if you can, because while I'm asking everyone to be not afraid, I understand that fear is an but natural emotion in this kind of situation. So being with friends help. And then again, I will just repeat the same point. Set up a rapport, talking about interesting stuff, and discuss your concerns again. Dinners are typically on your tables. You will have typically people who are a little more senior in the organization. They can give you much better view on your concerns than perhaps even your buddies. And they don't beat around the bush so much. At least that's one of the best things I found, that whenever I raise a genuine concern, I got a genuine answer. So discuss your concerns, set up a rapport. Here one risk is that a lot of people, I think again driven by fear or an incomplete understanding of what they want from that interaction, they raise very random points which can be classified under the larger umbrella of desperate participation. My take, and I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, is to not engage with them so much on, how is this particular sector performing according to you? What do you think is the future of whatever telecom or utilities business? I mean, how does that really matter? I would prefer if you genuinely ask questions around their work life. If let's say you're talking to a partner, one of the things that I was most curious to know is to ask a partner, how have you survived for 10 years? Has there been something you've been telling yourself every day? What were the moments in your life where you thought you wanted to quit this firm, and how did you decide to stay in? Like, these were genuinely the things I wanted to know, and I would want everyone who has a chance to see this video to actually think of such questions if they suit you or concerns more, rather than ask them the future of a particular sector. So that's about the buddies and that dinner. Then once all of this is done, if let's say, like I mentioned, you have a gazillion shortlist, and I mentioned that you really have one shot in a very realistic manner, you would want to pick which company you want to focus on, which company to give a shot to. I don't know how the process works in different campuses. I frankly am not very clear on that. But what I would say is your individual preference should be based on your gut. And here again, I would differentiate between the job versus career thing. Sometimes I have seen some of my friends and some of the people in my junior batch make a choice on the basis of, where they feel that, you know, they have a higher chance of converting an offer, and they pick that firm and interview with them and get an offer. I can understand wanting to buy safety, and that's completely fine. My perspective is different, and just want to share that, which is, if at the end of the day, if your happiness is incomplete and feels like a compromise, and you feel that, oh, I wish I had gone to that other firm, that was my dream firm. It's a selection process, and come to the eighth point together with it. It's a selection process, not a rejection process. Even if you go for a dream firm, you're more likely than perhaps any other time in your life before or even after to convert that offer. And even if you don't convert that offer, you can still go back to your second preference firm, third preference, whatever you want in life, and go to them. At least you will not leave the day with a feeling that I wish I had not compromised on my dreams, which I have seen many people that buyers regret that they have. So, if possible, I know it's a very difficult call to take, but try to take that call for yourself. And just lastly, continuing point eight, be yourself and be there for your friends. Mostly it's a happy day. For some, it can be a terrible day. Be mindful of when you're celebrating and just be around for people. People remember it for a very long time on campus. Actually, that's what I saw on Ahmedabad campus. People remember who were there for them, and they will remember who were not there for them. Just show some compassion and be yourself. So I hope some of these pointers help you avoid some of the common mistakes that people do, and essentially get a better experience when you are moving towards consulting as your dream career. So, as always, do not forget to check out the case interpretation, which essentially complements the advice in many ways and helps you inch closer to your dream. Keep revisiting some of these ideas, especially when you're closer to your processes. Share this with anyone in any campus that you feel might benefit from this, and leave a comment if you have anything to share with me. So, take care, best of luck, and just